Child of the living God. Tell me, have you been counting your coins as though they were your last, instead of blessing them as the seed of an endless harvest? Have you clutched money with fear, whispering, I must hold on, when the Spirit whispers, let go, and I will pour out a blessing you cannot contain? The silver in your purse and the gold in your hand are not mere metal. They are divine substance, alive with the breath of the Almighty, awaiting your word to multiply. Did you not read that the Master took 5 loaves and 2 fishes, blessed them, broke them, and fed the multitude with baskets left over? The money in your hand is your loaf and fish. It is not your supply, it is the symbol of your supply, and when you speak the living word over it, it becomes the channel of miracles. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. And the fullness thereof is now commanded by your faith. For every coin you hold in gratitude becomes a messenger of abundance, carrying your decree into the invisible, where God's arithmetic multiplies it without limit. So I ask you, beloved, will you continue to clutch your seed with trembling fingers, or will you speak the word that releases heaven's storehouse? If you will dare to speak it, not with your lips alone, but with the deep, immovable faith that moves mountains, the law of multiplication will begin this very hour. Hold your money in your hand. Look at it, bless it, speak life into it, for the word you speak over it is the wand that changes shadows into gold. If you are ready to learn this unshakable truth, stay with me to the end, and watch what God will do for you. And before we begin, touch this message with your faith, like and subscribe, so the river of divine truth may flow to every soul who hungers for it. For in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And if the Word was God in the beginning, then the Word is God now. The word spoken in faith is the voice of creation itself, carrying within it the seed of the thing decreed. The heavens and the earth were not formed by toil, nor by human striving, but by the sound of God's command. Let there be light. And there was light. The same voice that spoke light into existence speaks through you when you align yourself with the Spirit. For you were made in His image, after His likeness, and to you was given the authority to decree a thing, and it shall be established unto you. The law of the spoken word is not a fancy for dreamers, it is the foundation of the universe. What you speak in faith becomes flesh. What you bless, multiplies. What you curse, withers. I have seen the poorest soul lift himself from want to wealth, not by labor alone, but by speaking the word of abundance over his affairs. I have seen the sick rise to health because they ceased speaking of their ailments and began declaring, I am whole, I am strong, I am free. For death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. You may say, but I have spoken many good things, and yet nothing has come. I tell you, it is not enough to speak good words, you must speak them without contradiction. A single fearful statement can uproot a garden of faith. You cannot sow I am rich in the morning, and I am poor at night, and expect your harvest to flourish. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. When the seed of your word is planted, you must protect it, as a gardener guards tender shoots from the frost. Think of Thomas Edison. Before the light bulb ever glowed, he spoke of its coming. Thousands of failures did not make him retract his word. He held to it as a captive. And holds to the wheel in a storm. His faith was not in his own strength, but in the law that idea follows word, and manifestation follows idea. And so it was. The money in your possession, be it great or small, must hear the sound of blessing. Take it in your hand and speak. You are God's substance. You are alive with the multiplying power of the infinite. You return to me multiplied, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Speak it, and see in your mind's eye the channels opening, unexpected checks, forgiven debts, divine opportunities, the increase of clients, customers, contracts. For the Lord is your banker, and His resources are without limit. And beware of speaking the language of lack. Many hold tight to their money and say, I cannot afford this, money is scarce, times are hard. Beloved, that is to slam shut the very door you seek to open. For the moment you declare money is scarce, you command the universe to hide it from you. The moment you declare times are hard, you invite hardness into your path. You are made in the image of a creator, not a beggar. Speak like one who governs their world with divine authority. I knew a woman who was in dire need. Her rent was due, and she had but a few coins to her name. She came to me trembling and asked what she should do. I told her, bless what you have, speak to it, call it the seed of your harvest. She obeyed, though it seemed foolish to her natural mind. She held the coins in her palm and declared, You are my seed, planted in the soil of divine substance. You will grow and return to me multiplied, for my supply is God, and God is infinite. The very next morning, she received a letter containing money far exceeding what she needed, and she said to me, I see now, it was my word that opened the channel. Beloved, your word is a magnet for the thing decreed. By thy words thou shalt be justified. And by thy words thou shalt be condemned. If you speak condemnation over your finances, they will be condemned to shrink. If you speak blessing, they will be justified to increase. The law is exact, and it plays no favorites. Rich or poor, learned or simple, it answers only to faith and the spoken word. When you take money in your hand, do not see it as a piece of paper or metal, but as a living seed. If a farmer looked at a seed and said, this is all I have, I must not plant it, his field would remain barren. But when he plants it, the seed dies to its smallness and rises to its greatness. So it is with your money. It must be released with blessing in order to multiply. Andrew Carnegie, who rose from humble beginnings to great wealth, once said he could not have attained success had he not cultivated a mental attitude of abundance long before the actual riches came. He spoke his empire into being while others spoke only of impossibility. The world called him lucky, but heaven called him obedient to law. So I say to you, do not speak of what you see, speak of what you desire. Do not say, I am broke, say, I am abundantly supplied. Do not say, money is going out faster than it comes in. Say, money comes to me easily and frequently, from expected and unexpected channels. For the law hears only the command, not the emotion behind it. It will bring to you the exact image you hold and the exact words you speak. The Israelites were brought out of Egypt by a word, let my people go. It was not the strength of Moses' arm, but the strength of the decree that parted the Red Sea. And if the sea of your finances seems impassable, it is the word, spoken in faith, that will cause the waters to part and the dry land to appear. Beloved, hear me well. Your money is waiting for your command. It will obey your voice if your voice obeys the law. It will multiply if you call it blessed. It will flee if you call it cursed. There is no mystery to it, only law, and your obedience to that law. So take up your coins, your bills, your bank statement, your purse. Hold them and speak with the authority of a child of God. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Wealth flows to me now in perfect ways. My money is God's substance, and it multiplies in my hands. For when the word and faith meet, heaven and earth join hands, and the invisible becomes visible. This is the first step, and without it, no other step will stand. Speak the word, and watch the world obey. Faith is the architect of the unseen. It is the builder's blueprint, the artist's vision, the composer's melody before a single note has been played. Without faith, the word is but an empty shell. With faith, the word is a seed bursting with life. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You may hold no evidence in your hands, and yet faith is your evidence. You may see no harvest in your field, and yet faith is the substance of your crop. I have seen men and women speak words of abundance, yet watch them wither, because they spoke them with lips that trembled in fear. For faith is not pretending to believe. It is knowing, in the marrow of your being, that the thing spoken is already yours. Faith does not bargain with God. It takes him at his word. Faith does not knock timidly at the door of supply. It throws the door wide open and walks in as a rightful heir. Consider the story of Peter stepping out upon the water. The storm raged, the waves rose high, but the voice of the Master said, "Come." And while his eyes were fixed on that word, the sea was as solid as stone beneath his feet. But when he looked at the wind and the waves, fear entered, and he began to sink. So it is with your finances, your health, your heart's desire. While your vision is fixed upon the promise, you walk on water. When you look at the appearance, you sink. Your vision is the mold into which the substance of God is poured. If the mold is small, the manifestation will be small. If the mold is vast, the manifestation will be vast. Orison Swett Marden wrote that the poverty of the average person is not in their purse, but in their vision. They dare not imagine a life beyond the limits of the familiar. Yet the Spirit says, "Lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it." I once knew a man who dreamed of owning a shop, not a large one, but a place where he could work with his hands and sell the fruit of his labor. He spoke of it often, but always with a sigh, saying, "One day perhaps, if fortune smiles." I told him, "Fortune does not smile. Faith commands. Speak as though it is already so." He began to declare, "I have a fine shop. It prospers greatly. I serve gladly, and money flows to me from it in perfect ways." Within 6 months, a friend offered him the very space he had envisioned, at a price he could afford. His word, held in the mold of faith, had drawn the substance to fill it. Faith without vision is like a bow without an arrow. Vision without faith is like an arrow without a bowstring. Together, they are irresistible. Faith draws from the infinite supply. Vision directs where that supply shall go. You cannot draw wealth without picturing it. You cannot hold that picture without the grip of faith. Napoleon Hill wrote that every fortune begins with an idea. And I tell you, every divine fortune begins with a God-inspired vision, spoken in faith. Hill gathered the stories of the greatest wealth builders of his time, and though their methods varied, each carried an unwavering image in the mind and an unshakable belief in its reality. Andrew Carnegie saw his steel empire long before it rose. Walt Disney saw castles before they touched the S's. They were prophets of their own destiny. And yet, beloved, vision must be followed by the law of right action. The Spirit may give you the blueprint, but you must build. The Master fed the 5,000 not by sitting still, but by blessing and breaking the bread, then giving it to the disciples to distribute. The action was as much a part of the miracle as the blessing. Right action is action taken in faith, free from fear, free from hurry, guided by divine intuition. I have known those who spoke the word of abundance, yet refused every opportunity God sent, because it came dressed in humble garments. They prayed for provision, and when a small job was offered they said, "This is too little." But the little was the seed of the great. Despise not the day of small things. The oak does not appear full-grown in your garden. It comes as an acorn. To reject the acorn is to reject the oak. Dr. Frank Crane once said that many wait for the iron to be hot before they strike, not knowing that striking is what makes the iron hot. Right action kindles the fire of opportunity. When God shows you a step, take it. It may not look like the full answer, but it is the bridge to the answer. Faith without works is dead, and so is vision without movement. There is a divine sequence to manifestation. The word spoken, the vision held, the action taken. Each is a link in the golden chain. To speak without seeing is to scatter seed on the wind. To see without speaking is to hide seed in the dark. To speak and see without acting is to water seed in a jar, never planting it. I recall a woman who desired to travel abroad, yet her purse was light. She spoke daily. I travel in comfort and joy. My way is paid in full. But she did more. She obtained a passport. She gathered information about her desired destination. She prepared as though the journey were certain. Within weeks, a friar and invited her on a trip, covering all expenses. She had acted her faith into being. Your vision is the mold into which the substance of God is poured. If the mold is small, the manifestation will be small. If the mold is vast, the manifestation will be vast. Orison Swett Marden wrote that the poverty of the average person is not in their purse, but in their vision. They dare not imagine a life beyond the limits of the familiar. Yet the Spirit says, "Lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it." I once knew a man who dreamed of owning a shop, not a large one, but a place where he could work with his hands and sell the fruit of his labor. He spoke of it often, but always with a sigh, saying, "One day perhaps, if fortune smiles." I told him, "Fortune does not smile. Faith commands. Speak as though it is already so." He began to declare, "I have a fine shop. It prospers greatly. I serve gladly, and money flows to me from it in perfect ways." Within 6 months, a friend offered him the very space he had envisioned, at a price he could afford. His word, held in the mold of faith, had drawn the substance to fill it. Faith without vision is like a bow without an arrow. Vision without faith is like an arrow without a bowstring. Together, they are irresistible. Faith draws from the infinite supply. Vision directs where that supply shall go. You cannot draw wealth without picturing it. You cannot hold that picture without the grip of faith. Napoleon Hill wrote that every fortune begins with an idea. And I tell you, every divine fortune begins with a God-inspired vision, spoken in faith. Hill gathered the stories of the greatest wealth builders of his time, and though their methods varied, each carried an unwavering image in the mind and an unshakable belief in its reality. Andrew Carnegie saw his steel empire long before it rose. Walt Disney saw castles before they touched the S's. They were prophets of their own destiny. And yet, beloved, vision must be followed by the law of right action. The Spirit may give you the blueprint, but you must build. The master fed the 5,000 not by sitting still, but by blessing and breaking the bread, then giving it to the disciples to distribute. The action was as much a part of the miracle as the blessing. Right action is action taken in faith, free from fear, free from hurry, guided by divine intuition. I have known those who spoke the word of abundance, yet refused every opportunity God sent, because it came dressed in humble garments. They prayed for provision, and when a small job was offered they said, "This is too little." But the little was the seed of the great. Despise not the day of small things. The oak does not appear full-grown in your garden. It comes as an acorn. To reject the acorn is to reject the oak. Dr. Frank Crane once said that many wait for the iron to be hot before they strike, not knowing that striking is what makes the iron hot. Right action kindles the fire of opportunity. When God shows you a step, take it. It may not look like the full answer, but it is the bridge to the answer. Faith without works is dead, and so is vision without movement. There is a divine sequence to manifestation. The word spoken, the vision held, the action taken. Each is a link in the golden chain. To speak without seeing is to scatter seed on the wind. To see without speaking is to hide seed in the dark. To speak and see without acting is to water seed in a jar, never planting it. I recall a woman who desired to travel abroad, yet her purse was light. She spoke daily. "I travel in comfort and joy. My way is paid in full." But she did more. She obtained a passport. She gathered information about her desired destination. She prepared as though the journey were certain. Within weeks, a friar and invited her on a trip, covering all expenses. She had acted her faith into being. The law of right action requires courage, for it will often lead you into uncharted waters. But fear is the thief of divine ideas. Swami Vivekananda said, "Fear is death, fear is sin, fear is hell, fear is unrighteousness, fear is wrong life. Faith is life, faith is righteousness, faith is heaven." When you act in faith, you announce to heaven and earth that you trust the law of supply. And know this, right action is not frantic action. The world runs in haste, chasing shadows, but divine action moves with calm certainty. Gurdjieff taught that right effort is never wasted, for it is born of conscious intention. When you act in alignment with your spoken word and your vision, your steps are ordered by the Lord. You are no longer pushing against the current, you are carried by the river of right timing. Right action may mean paying a debt when you would rather hoard the money. It may mean giving when the world says to keep. But give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. When you obey this law, you set in motion the law of return. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Right action brings the hidden belief into the light. When you take a step that contradicts your fear, you declare to the subconscious, "I am not ruled by lack, I am ruled by abundance." And the subconscious, like a faithful servant, obeys the master's last command. Beloved, the kingdom of heaven is not a place to be reached after death. It is a state of consciousness to be entered now. Faith opens the gate, vision shows the path, and right action walks it. Without these three, the money in your hand remains a symbol only. With them, it becomes a seed that grows into a forest of supply. So I say again, speak your word with authority, hold your vision with certainty, imamdani, and take your step with courage. For the Lord has said, "Prove me now herewith, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it." There is a clock in heaven, beloved, and its hands never move too fast nor too slow. It keeps perfect time, the time of God, not the time of man. Divine timing is the invisible conductor of your symphony, ensuring that every note enters at its appointed moment. No fear, no hurry, no delay, only the unfolding of God's perfect sequence. Yet how many stumble here? They plant the seed of the word, they water it with faith, they prepare the field with action, but when the sprout does not appear overnight, they dig up the soil to see if anything is happening. In their impatience, they uproot the very miracle they have sown. Be still, and know that I am God. Divine timing does not mean waiting without movement, it means moving in rhythm with the Spirit. The eagle does not flap its wings in frenzy. It waits for the current, then spreads its wings and lets the wind carry it higher. So must you wait for the upward draft of God's appointed moment. The harvest does not ripen in haste. First the blade, then the ear, after that the full corn in the ear. I have seen people cry, "Why has my good not yet come?" And I tell them, it is coming, and it will come dressed in perfection, not in haste. There is a reason the Israelites did not enter the promised land in a day. The journey shaped their faith to match their inheritance. To arrive too soon would have been to arrive unprepared. Napoleon Hill wrote that every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. But a seed must be given time to germinate. If you rush the process, you receive the shell without the substance. Trust that the delay is not denial, it is preparation. God is arranging the opal, the places, the circumstances to align with your decree. Divine timing is like the gears of a great clock. You may see only one wheel turning slowly, but beneath the face of the clock, every gear is moving in perfect coordination. Your decree sets the gears in motion. You may hear no sound, see no sign, but the hands are moving toward the appointed hour. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. And here is where the law of non-resistance enters. For many delay their good by pushing against what is. They declare abundance, yet fight their present conditions with resentment and fear. But resistance binds you to the very thing you resist. Agree with thine adversary quickly does not mean to embrace injustice. It means to cease pouring your life force into the battle against shadows. Non-resistance is the art of moving through life as water moves around a rock. The water does not stop to argue with the stone. It flows around it, and in time, it wears the stone away. When you meet an obstacle, bless it, release it, and move in the direction of your good. The moment you stop wrestling with the appearance, you free the energy to manifest the reality. I knew a woman who was owed a large sum of money. For years, she fought the debtor with letters, phone calls, and bitter words. The more she pushed, the further the repayment slipped away. I told her, release him, bless him, see the debt paid in divine order. She resisted, for it felt to her like surrendering her right. But one day, weary of the struggle, she obeyed. She blessed the man, released the matter to God, and turned her attention to her own prosperity. Within weeks the payment came, not from him, but through an entirely different channel. The law had been freed to work. Non-resistance is not weakness, it is supreme strength. It is the refusal to be drawn into the vibration of lack or conflict. Jesus said, resist not evil. Why? Because resistance feeds the thing resisted. When you stop feeding it with attention and emotion, it withers. Emerson wrote, the only way to have a friend is to be one. And I tell you, the only way to have abundance is to be in the vibration of abundance. You cannot fight your way into it, you must flow your way into it. Thomas Troward, the great metaphysician, taught that the spirit is like an unresisting medium. It accepts every impression given to it and reproduces it without judgment. If you impress it with struggle, it reproduces struggle. If you impress it with peace, it reproduces peace. Non-resistance is the conscious choice to impress the spirit with the vibration of harmony, regardless of outer appearances. Imagine a river flowing toward your desired manifestation. Every thought of doubt is a stone dropped into the water, slowing the current. Every thought of, it must happen now, in this way, is a dam built across it. Non-resistance removes the stones and dismantles the dam, allowing the river to carry your good to you with speed and ease. The spirit may choose channels you never imagined. You may decree wealth, and instead of receiving it through your business, it may come through an inheritance, a gift, a sudden opportunity. If you are rigid in your expectation, you may block the very path God has chosen. Non-resistance says, Lord, I trust you to bring my good in the perfect way, at the perfect time, through the perfect channel. And here is the paradox. When you release the need for it to happen, it happens. When you stop grasping, it comes to rest in your hand. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. The kingdom is the consciousness of harmony. When you dwell there, the outer aligns effortlessly. Ella Wheeler Wilcox wrote, the winds of fate blow as they will, but it is the set of the sail that determines the way we go. Non-resistance is the setting of the sail to catch the wind of divine timing. You cannot command the wind, but you can align with it. In my own work, I have seen miracles arrive the moment a student ceased striving. A man desired to sell his home. He placed it on the market and grew agitated when no offers came. I told him, release it, bless it, see it already sold to the perfect buyer. He did so, and within days the sale was made at a higher price than expected. His non-resistance had opened the channel. Gurdjieff spoke of the law of three, that in every event there is an affirming force, a denying force, and a reconciling force. Non-resistance is the reconciling force. When you meet opposition, you do not add to the denying force. You reconcile it by flowing into a higher channel where the opposition has no power. Divine timing and non-resistance are lovers. One prepares the stage, the other keeps it clear of debris. Without timing, your good may arrive before you are ready. Without non-resistance, your good may be delayed by the clutter of your own struggle. Together, they ensure the perfect arrival of your manifestation. Beloved, the money you hold, the health you seek, the relationship you desire, all are subject to these laws. Speak the word, hold the vision, act in faith, and then, release. Let the gears of divine timing turn without your interference. Let the river of non-resistance carry you without your paddling against the current. And while you wait, live as though the good were already here. For what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. Do not wait for proof to rejoice. Rejoice, and proof will come. Do not wait for the door to open to prepare. Prepare, and the door will open. Child of God, you are not the servant of time. Time is the servant of your faith. You are not the victim of circumstance. Circumstance is the mirror of your consciousness. Align with divine timing, dwell in non-resistance, and the appointed hour will strike, and you will find yourself standing in the full manifestation of the word you spoke. Manifestation is the visible body of an invisible word. It is the child born of the union between faith and the spoken decree. Everything you see in the material world is but condensed spirit, thought made flesh, word crystallized into form. You may think your table is wood, your coin is metal, your home is brick and stone, but before it was these, it was an idea. Before it was an idea, it was the formless substance of God, waiting for the mold of thought and the command of the spoken word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This truth has not changed. The same law that called worlds into existence still governs your affairs. The same law that multiplied the widow's oil will multiply your resources when you align with it. The same voice that said, "Let there be light," now speaks through you when you decree your good. But hear me well. Manifestation is not magic. It is law. It is not luck, nor chance, nor the whim of fate. It is the precise unfolding of cause and effect in the realm of spirit. Many call it miracle because they do not understand the law behind it. But to the one who understands, it is as natural as the rising of the sun. The law of multiplication is one of the richest laws in this universe. It declares that whatever you bless and release will return to you increased. The seed multiplies after its kind. A single grain of wheat does not produce another grain. It produces a stalk, heavy with many grains. A single coin, blessed and placed into circulating, on with faith, can draw to you a river of coins. Jesus revealed this law when he fed the multitudes. He took what was in hand, 5 loaves, 2 fishes, and he blessed them. He did not look at them with scorn and say, "This is not enough." He looked to heaven, gave thanks, and broke them. The blessing came before the breaking, the increase before the distribution, and as they gave, the loaves and fishes multiplied. This is the key. You bless, you release, and as you give, the law multiplies. But most people do the opposite. They curse what they have by calling it not enough. They clutch it in fear, bury it in the ground, or hide it in the darkest corners of their consciousness. And what they fear to release becomes stagnant. Money, like blood in the body, must circulate to sustain life. Hoarded, it stagnates. Blessed and set in motion, it multiplies. I once knew a man in business who complained constantly that customers were few. His words had bound his supply. I told him, "Bless your business as though it were overflowing. Speak to your accounts, your stock, your services. You are alive with the power of multiplication. See your store filled with eager buyers, and give, for giving is the surest proof you believe in the law." He obeyed, though it seemed to his natural mind like folly. Within weeks, business increased beyond his expectation. Why? Because he had entered into the law. Bless, release, receive. The law of multiplication is woven into every part of creation. Look at the apple. Within it are seeds. Plant one seed, and in time you have a tree. The tree bears apples, each containing more seeds, and in those seeds, whole orchards. The multiplication is endless because the law is endless. But to activate it, you must give the seed a place to grow. Many bury their seed in the soil of fear, watering it with worry, shading it with doubt, and then wonder why no harvest comes. The soil of multiplicati. On is faith, the water is gratitude, the sunlight is joy. Without these, the seed cannot thrive. Christian D. Larson said, "To give your thought to poverty is to give your life to poverty." The same is true of multiplication. To give your thought to increase is to give your life to increase. If you dwell upon your good as though it is already multiplying, you draw to yourself the very conditions for it to do so. Consider the parable of the talents. One servant received 5 talents and multiplied them into 10. Another received 2 and multiplied them into 4. But the one who received a single talent hid it in the earth out of fear. The master did not praise his caution. He rebuked it. Why? Because fear violates the law. The law says, use what you have, and more will be given. Fear says, hide what you have, lest it be taken. The result of fear is loss. The result of faith is multiplication. You may say, but I have nothing to give. That is not true. You have a word to speak, a blessing to bestow, a kindness to offer, a prayer to send forth. These too are seeds. Speak blessing over another's business, and the law will bless yours. Give joy, and joy will return multiplied. Give time, and time will expand for you. Dr. Frank Crane wrote that the surest way to receive is to first give, not as a bargain with heaven, but as the natural expression of trust. When you give without fear, you are announcing to the universe, I dwell in the supply of the infinite. I cannot be diminished. That announcement sets the law in motion. Ella Wheeler Wilcox understood this when she wrote, give what you have. To someone, it may be better than you dare to think. Your small gift may be the answer to another's prayer, and in answering theirs, you open the way for yours to be answered. The law of multiplication has no limit. It is as infinite as God. But you must remove the stopper from the bottle. If you pour water into a vessel and seal it, it cannot receive more. If you keep your life sealed in fear, it cannot receive more. But if you pour out, blessing flows in to fill the space you have made. I knew a woman who lived in constant lack. Her clothes were worn, her pantry nearly bare. I told her, begin to give from what you have. Give a smile, a kind word, a coin, a loaf. Bless it as you give it. She resisted, thinking it impossible, but at last she tried. She baked a loaf of bread and gave it to a neighbor, saying, this is blessed, may it multiply for you and me. Within days, food began to arrive at her door, gifts from others, surplus from shops, invitations to meals. Her giving had broken the dam. Andrew Carnegie, who amassed great wealth, said that he could not have done so had he not first practiced the principle of increase. Giving value beyond what was paid for, blessing every transaction, expecting his efforts to multiply. He knew the law, whether he named it or not. Beloved, the money in your hand is not just paper, it is a seed. If you bury it in fear, it remains alone. If you bless it and set it in motion, it multiplies. Hold it now and speak. You are God's substance. You go forth to bless, and you return to me multiplied, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And know this. The law of multiplication responds not only to what you give, but to the spirit in which you give it. A grudging gift carries no seed of blessing. A joyful gift multiplies beyond measure. God loveth a cheerful giver is not mere poetry, it is the description of a law. Walt Disney once said, the more you give away, the more comes back to you. He lived this truth, pouring imagination into his work without fear of running dry, and the more he poured, the more ideas came, the more channels opened, the more abundance flowed. Do not wait for enough before you give. Enough will never come to the one who withholds. Give from what you have, and you will see that what you have increases. Speak blessing over it, release it in faith, and prepare for the return. For the law will not fail. It cannot fail. It is the nature of God himself. So I tell you now, go forth and multiply. Bless every coin, every act, every gift. Release them into the river of life, and watch as they return to you in greater form. And when they return, bless them again, and send them forth again, and the cycle of multiplication will carry you into a life where lack is but a forgotten shadow. Fear is faith inverted. It is belief in the power of evil, rather than the power of God. It is the shadow cast by the turning away from the light, yet fear has no substance of its own. It is the absence of the consciousness of God's presence. As darkness cannot exist where light enters, fear cannot remain where faith is steadfast. Perfect love casteth out fear, for fear hath torment, and God is love. I have seen fear grip the hands of men so tightly that they could not release their seed to be planted. I have seen it steal the song from a woman's lips, the strength from a worker's arm, the vision from a dreamer's eye. Fear is the great paralyzer, the silent thief. It whispers, what if you fail? What if you lose? What if there is not enough? And those who heed its voice soon find themselves walking in the very conditions they dreaded. Job declared, the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me. Why? Because fear is also a form of prayer, a negative prayer, that brings about the very image held in the mind. The law is exact. It does not ask whether your belief is for or against yourself. It simply reproduces the picture you impress upon it. You may think your fear is harmless if you hide it in your heart, but the subconscious knows no hiding place. It receives every vibration you send and works tirelessly to manifest it. You cannot say in your heart, I am afraid of poverty, and in your mouth declare, I am rich, and expect the rich word to bear fruit. The fear will choke the seed. Beloved, to walk fully in faith, you must starve your fear. Do not feed it with anxious conversation, with mental rehearsals of disaster, with constant reading of bad reports. Every word you speak, every image you dwell upon, is food for either faith or fear. Feed your faith with truth, and your fear will wither as a plant withers without water. I knew a man who feared the loss of his position. Though his work was excellent, he continually spoke of the possibility of dismissal. In time, his fear was fulfilled. His position was given to another. When he came to me in distress, I told him, "You have been prophesying your own downfall. Begin now to prophesy your restoration." He began to speak daily. I am divinely guided to my perfect place. I render perfect service in a perfect way, and I am compensated in a perfect manner. Within weeks, he was offered a position better than the one he had lost. Faith is not the absence of evidence, it is the presence of certainty. When Thomas Edison sought to bring forth the electric light, he faced thousands of failures. But he said, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This was faith, a refusal to bow to appearances, a steadfast gaze upon the vision. Fear says, "It cannot be done." Faith says, "It is done, though my eyes have not yet seen it." Andrew Carnegie declared that the man who acquires the habit of approaching problems with faith and optimism becomes a magnet for solutions. He knew the power of mental attitude, for he had lived it, rising from a poor immigrant boy to one of the wealthiest men in the world, not by fearing what could go wrong, but by believing in what could go right. Fear often masquerades as caution, as prudence, as being realistic. But true prudence is not born of fear, it is born of divine wisdom. Fear freezes, faith flows. Fear contracts, faith expands. Fear sees only the obstacle, faith sees the path over it, around it, or through it. When Peter walked on the water, he did so because his eyes were fixed on the Master. The moment he looked at the wind and the waves, he began to sink. Your wind and waves may be bills on the desk, illness in the body, rumors in the marketplace, but if you keep your gaze upon the truth, you will walk where others sink. Swami Vivekananda taught, fear is death, fear is sin, fear is hell, fear is unrighteousness, fear is wrong life. He urged his students to cultivate fearlessness as the highest virtue, for only the fearless can know the full measure of divine freedom. To walk fully in faith is to be so certain of your oneness with God that no shadow can shake you. I have seen miracles unfold in the lives of those who refuse to be intimidated by appearances. A woman once came to me with a diagnosis of grave illness. She said, "The doctors have given me little hope." I replied, "Man's extremity is God's opportunity. Do not rehearse the doctor's words in your mind. Rehearse God's word. I am the Lord that healeth thee." She clung to that verse as to a lifeline, speaking it day and night. Her health returned, and the doctors marveled. Beloved, faith must be practiced before it is needed. The soldier does not wait for the battle to learn his weapon. He trains daily. So must you train your mind to turn instantly to truth when fear knocks. Speak the word aloud. Write it. Sing it. Let it become so familiar that in the moment of testing, it rises unbidden to our lips. Christian D. Larson said, "Believe in yourself because you believe in the infinite that is within you." This is not self-worship, it is God-worship. For the self you believe in is the self made in his image. Fear believes in separation, faith believes in union. One way to walk fully in faith is to act as though the thing you desire is already yours. If you seek abundance, give from what you have. If you seek friendship, show yourself friendly. If you seek health, act as one who is strong. This is not hypocrisy, it is prophecy in action. It is the shaping of your outer life to match your inner decree. I recall a man who desired to open a restaurant. His resources were meager, but his vision was strong. Instead of speaking of lack, he began to cook meals for friends, presenting them as though they were dining in his future establishment. Word spread, and soon an investor offered to back his dream. His faith had not waited for the money. It had acted as though the money were already there. Fear will tell you to wait until everything is certain before you act. Faith acts because it is certain. Fear says, "When I have the supply, I will begin." Faith says, "When I begin, the supply will appear." Dr. Frank Crane once wrote that courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. To master fear you must replace it, not merely suppress it. You cannot think two thoughts at once. When you fill your mind with faith, there is no room for fear. When you speak words of truth, there is no space for the language of defeat. Beloved, the Lord has not given you the spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. Power, to act in the face of challenge. Love, to remain in harmony with all life. A sound mind, to see clearly through the fog of appearances. These three are the antidote to fear. Make this your practice. When fear whispers, answer it aloud with truth. If fear says, you will fail, say, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. If fear says, you will be left alone, say, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. If fear says, you will lose what you have, say, no good thing will he withhold from them that walk uprightly. And as you do this, you will find that fear loses its voice. It may knock, but you will not answer. It may wave its arms, but you will walk past it. You will walk fully in faith, and in that walk, every step will be upon solid ground, even when it appears you are stepping into nothing. Beloved, fear is a shadow. Faith is the light. The shadow cannot swallow the light, but the light will always dissolve the shadow. Turn toward the light, and walk on. And if this word has kindled courage in your heart, take a step of faith even now. Bless this message, share it, and subscribe, that others may be lifted from fear into the fearless walk of faith. Supply is not a warehouse you must guard, it is a river you must trust. The child of God is not meant to scrape for crumbs under the table of life, but to sit at the banquet and eat freely. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies, wrote the psalmist, not a small plate, not a meager portion, but a table, abundant and overflowing, in full view of lack and limitation, so that even they must bear witness to your provision. Continuous supply is not the result of hoarding, it is the fruit of constant circulation. Divine substance flows as freely as the air you breathe, and like the air, it is everywhere, unceasing, waiting only for you to inhale it with faith. The miser who hides his gold is like the man who holds his breath, afraid the air will run out. He may clutch it for a moment, but soon he finds his hands empty and his heart faint. The Master said, give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, press, ed down, and shaken together, and running over. Notice the running over. It is the sign of divine opulence. The measure you give determines the measure you receive. The one who gives sparingly receives sparingly. The one who gives generously receives abundantly. The law is fixed, for it reflects the nature of God, who never gives by halves. I recall a woman who came to me in great need. She said, I have only $1 to my name, and I cannot possibly give any of it. I replied, you have just enough to open the floodgates. Give it to the place where your spirit feels most alive, bless it as seed, and release it without fear. She hesitated, but obeyed. Within a week, she received an unexpected gift of $50. That 50 became 500, and her flow of supply never ceased again. The dollar she feared to part with had been her key to the treasure chest. Napoleon Hill wrote, the ladder of success is never crowded at the top. Why? Because few will climb it with the open hand of faith. Many cling to each rung with both fists, afraid to release anything to reach for the next. But the one who trusts the law of circulation will climb swiftly, for they are unencumbered by fear. The law of continuous supply is like the tide. It must move in and out. If you only expect the tide to come in without allowing it to go out, you will soon stagnate. The sea would rot if it ceased to move, and so would your affairs. Divine supply refreshes itself in the act of giving, for every gift sets the law in motion. Ella Wheeler Wilcox said, it is the soul's duty to be loyal to its own desires. Desire is not greed, it is the voice of the infinite within, urging you to expand into your rightful place. When you desire more good, you are not asking God to take from another to give to you. You are asking Him to reveal more of Himself through you. God's storehouse is limitless. Your portion expands as your faith expands. A man once told me, I cannot give because I must save for me. I said, your future is determined by the seeds you plant today. If you plant nothing, nothing will grow. If you plant sparingly, your harvest will be sparse. But if you plant bountifully, you will reap in kind. He began to give in small amounts, blessing each gift. Over time, his income doubled, tripled, until he could scarcely remember the days of lack. Gurdjieff taught that energy follows attention. When you fix your attention on supply as flowing and infinite, your actions will naturally align with that truth. You will give without strain, receive without guilt, and live without fear. The miser fixes his attention on lack, and his world shrinks to match his vision. The giver fixes his attention on abundance, and his world expands to meet it. Consider the lilies of the field, they toil not, neither do they spin, yet Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. The lily does not store water for the next season, it draws from the deep earth as needed, trusting the process. So must you draw from the unseen supply, trusting that the same God who clothed the lily and fed the sparrow will provide for you. A businessman once came to me in desperation. His accounts were dry, his creditors impatient. I said, bless your empty accounts as though they were full, see them as filled to overflowing, and speak to them. You are a channel of God's inexhaustible supply. Then give something, however small, to set the law in motion. He gave a single coin to a cause dear to him, speaking a blessing over it. Within days, an old client called with a large order, restoring his business to solvency. Thomas Troward declared that the spirit is the only source of supply, and the visible is only its expression. When you live from spirit, you live in an unfailing stream. The river may change its channel, but the water never ceases to flow. Jobs, investments, clients. These are channels. God is the source. When one channel dries, another opens. If your eyes are on the source and not on the vessel. I knew a woman whose rent was due and no money in sight. Instead of fretting, she dressed as though she were going to a banquet, declaring, "My God shall supply all my need according to his riches and glory." That very afternoon, she received a check from a long-forgotten debt, covering her rent and more. She had lived as though the supply were certain, and so it became. Your supply is not limited by geography, economy, or any man's opinion. Christian D. Larson wrote, "Whatever the mind is taught to expect, it will build, and whatever it builds, will appear in the life. Expect continuous supply, and the mind will build channels for it. Expect drought, and it will close every door in fear. A river that flows without obstruction carries freshness to everything it touches. So does the consciousness of abundance. When you give joyfully, you become like the river, nourishing, cleansing, renewing. The consciousness of lack is like a stagnant pool, breeding fear, resentment, and decay. Living in the flow of continuous supply requires two attitudes, gratitude and expectancy. Gratitude for what is now present, expectancy for what is to come. Gratitude keeps the heart open, expectancy keeps the channels clear. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. The grateful soul walks through gates others find shut. Andrew Carnegie often told the story of giving away millions, only to find more millions returning to him. He knew the law. The hand that is open to give is also open to receive. Close the hand, and nothing enters, or leaves. Do not confuse extravagance with abundance. Extravagance spends to impress, abundance spends to express. When you are in the flow, you spend without fear, for you know the source is infinite. You do not waste, for you value the gift. You circulate it with wisdom, and it returns multiplied. If you would live in continuous supply, speak daily. I give freely and fearlessly, knowing my supply is endless. Then act upon it. Give where your heart is moved, where your spirit rejoices. Give not from guilt, but from joy. And when the flow comes to you, receive it with gladness. Do not say, "This is too much," or, "I do not deserve it." To refuse the gift is to refuse the giver. Say instead, "This is the outpouring of God's love for me, and I receive it with thanksgiving." Beloved, the law of supply is as constant as the sunrise. You may cloud it with doubt, dam it with fear, or channel it with faith. Live in its flow, and you will never lack again. The more you push against life, the more it pushes back. Resistance is the invisible rope in a tug-of-war with the universe, and every pull you make is met with equal force. The law is clear: what you resist persists, but what you bless, releases. What you embrace, transforms. The Christ said, "Agree with thine adversary quickly, whilst thou art in the way with him." Not because you must love injustice, but because agreement dissolves the knot of resistance that keeps the trouble in place. Non-resistance is not weakness. It is the strength of the oak that bends with the storm while the rigid branch snaps. It is the wisdom of water, which flows around every rock, wearing it smooth without a single blow. It is the quiet authority of the Master, who could walk through a hostile crowd untouched, for there was no friction in him. He was in perfect agreement with divine law, and so no earthly force could harm him. Resistance tightens the grip of the very condition you wish to escape. A woman once came to me, vexed by a neighbor who seemed determined to irritate her at every turn. She prayed daily for the neighbor to change, yet the annoyance grew worse. I said, "Stop praying for her to change. See her bathed in divine light. Say, 'I bless you, and release you to your highest good.'" Within days, the neighbor moved away, leaving her in peace. She had stopped resisting and started blessing, and the situation dissolved without struggle. Thomas Troward said, "The action of mind plants that seed in the universal which must eventually germinate into external fruition. If the seed is resistance, the fruit will be more of the same. If the seed is peace, the fruit will be harmony." Think of the martial art of jiu-jitsu, where the opponent's force is not met with equal force, but is redirected until it collapses under its own momentum. Non-resistance works the same way. You do not fight the current, you turn your sail to catch it. You do not curse the storm, you ride its wind to a higher shore. The law of non-resistance is woven into creation itself. The planets do not resist their orbits, they glide in harmony with the forces that hold them. The seed does not resist the soil, it surrenders to it, and life bursts forth. The river does not resist the banks, it flows within them, yet shapes the land in time. A businessman I knew was locked in a bitter lawsuit. His every thought was consumed with defeating the other party. I told him, "You are feeding the fight with your own life force. Release it. Say, I bless this situation into the hands of divine justice. Let the perfect outcome appear." He resisted the advice at first, fearing it meant surrendering the case. But when he finally obeyed, the matter settled swiftly in his favor. The fight had ended the moment he stopped pushing. The master said, "Whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also." This is not a call to suffer abuse, it is a call to break the cycle of reaction. When you refuse to engage in the same vibration as the attack has nowhere to land. Evil requires your agreement to endure. Without your energy, it withers. Swami Vivekananda taught that the great souls are those who move through life untouched by its insults, its flatteries, its storms. They are not passive, but poised. They are not rigid, but rooted. They know that nothing can truly harm the one who is aligned with truth. Resistance is born of fear, the fear that if you do not fight, you will lose. But in the kingdom, loss is impossible. "All that the Father hath is mine," said Jesus. The Father's wealth, health, harmony, and protection are yours by divine right. You cannot lose what is yours in spirit, and what is not yours cannot be kept by force. Carl Jung observed that, what you resist not only persists but grows in size. This is why resentment festers, why grudges poison the soul. The act of resisting keeps the wound open. Forgiveness is not the condoning of wrong, it is the closing of the wound, the release of the poison. One of my students was plagued by debt collectors. Every call sent her into anger and anxiety. I told her, "Do not fear them, bless them, see them as messengers bringing the opportunity for your debt to be cleared in perfect ways." She began to speak over each bill. "You are paid in full by divine law." In less than 3 months, her debts were cleared through unexpected income. She had stopped feeding the problem with resistance, and the law had room to work. Andrew Carnegie built an empire not by resisting competition, but by flowing with innovation. He once said, "The man who acquires the habit of cooperation will never lack allies." Cooperation is non-resistance in action, the willingness to work with life rather than against it. Non-resistance does not mean accepting limitation. It means refusing to engage with it on its own terms. It is the art of seeing beyond the surface to the divine pattern beneath. When Moses led the Israelites to the Red Sea, there was no struggle with the water. He did not attempt to push it back with his hands. He lifted the rod of faith, and the way opened of its own accord. I recall a young artist who longed for recognition, but met only rejection from galleries. She had grown bitter, seeing every no as a personal insult. I told her, "Stop resisting rejection. Bless each no as a step toward your perfect yes." She began to send thank you notes to galleries that turned her away, blessing their success. Within a year, she was offered an exhibition at a prestigious venue. The moment she stopped pushing against closed doors, the right one swung open. The Bible tells us, "The Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still." Stillness is not inaction, it is focused receptivity. It is the quiet knowing that divine law is working even when the outer appearance says otherwise. Stillness is the soil in which miracles grow. Prentice Mulford said, "To resist a thing is to give it power." When you resist illness, you affirm its hold over you. When you resist poverty, you affirm its reality. But when you bless your body as the temple of the Holy Spirit, health flows. When you bless your finances as channels of God's abundance, supply comes. I once counseled a man who hated his job. Every day he resisted going, dreaded the hours, cursed the work. I told him, Bless your work as your current channel of supply. See it as temporary but perfect for now. Praise it until the next channel opens. He followed the advice, and within weeks was offered a position in a field he loved. He had loosened the chains of resistance, and life had room to shift. Non-resistance is trust in action. It is the faith that the Spirit knows the shortest, smoothest path to your good. The road may twist, but you are carried on invisible arms. When you fight the current, you tire. When you flow with it, you arrive rested and on time. Jesus demonstrated the supreme act of non-resistance in the Garden of Gethsemane. Faced with the cup of suffering, he said, "Nevertheless, no. Do not say, 'It is too soon,' or 'I am not ready.'" The fig tree does not ask the season if it may bear fruit. It simply responds to the sun. The harvest comes in perfect rhythm with the law, and when the fruit is ripe, you need only stretch forth your hand and gather it. The enemy of manifestation is hesitation. The mind says, "Perhaps tomorrow." But the Spirit says, "Now is the accepted time. Now is the day of salvation." Every dream fulfilled, every prayer answered, every vision made flesh begins in this unseen place. The world will tell you it is coincidence, chance, luck. But you know the truth. It is the working out of the law you have set in motion by your word. Do not confuse the channel with the source. God is your source. The job, the client, the investment, the gift. These are merely rivers carrying the supply. Rivers may change course, but the fountain never runs dry. If one channel closes, another opens in perfect time. You cannot be cut off from your good unless you cut yourself off from God in thought. Remember the loaves and fishes. Jesus did not pray for new bread and fish to fall from heaven. He blessed what was in hand. The blessing multiplied the visible until it overflowed. The law is the same for you. Bless the beginnings, bless the small sales, the first dollar, the faint sign of health. Bless them until they overflow. For what you bless increases, what you condemn withers. Andrew Carnegie once said, "Think of yourself as on the threshold of unparalleled success." He built steel into empires because he held in mind the picture of expansion, not lack. Napoleon Hill taught that, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. These men, whether or not they named it, were working with divine law. They acted on their vision, believed in the unseen, and reaped the visible. The law of manifestation is not magic, yet it works with a swiftness the world calls miraculous. When faith and word are in perfect agreement, time itself bends to deliver the result. I have seen healings in an hour that medicine could not bring in years. I have seen fortunes turn in a day for those who stood unwavering in truth. But take heed. Manifestation is not always in the form you expect. The Spirit will often deliver your good wrapped in the unexpected, so that your faith may expand. You may ask for wealth, and the answer may come as an inspired idea. You may ask for health, and the answer may come as a new friendship that lifts your spirit. You may ask for opportunity, and the answer may come as the closing of a door that was never meant for you. The Israelites asked for freedom, and God led them into the wilderness. It did not look like the promised land, yet it was the only road that led there. So it is with you. Trust the form in which your good appears. It is shaped for your highest unfolding. One woman prayed for a larger home. She held the vision, spoke the word, and gave thanks daily. Months passed without change. Then her landlord gave notice that she must vacate. She was tempted to despair, but remembered the law. She said, "This is not loss. This is my manifestation in motion." Within 2 weeks, she found a beautiful home at a rent she could easily afford. The seeming setback was the hand of God rearranging the pieces. The Bible tells us, "Prove me now herewith, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it." Manifestation is not trickling supply. It is pressed down, shaken together, running over. It is the lavishness of a Creator who made galaxies without number, oceans without end, flowers beyond counting, and calls you heir to it all. Thomas Edison did not wait for the light bulb. He worked with the law. Every failed filament was not a defeat, but a refinement. He knew the light was inevitable. His task was only to make the channel ready. And when the channel was ready, the light shone for all the world. Your demonstration is the same. Prepare your channel, and the light will come. Never dig up your seed with words of doubt. Many plant with faith in the morning and uproot it with fear by night. Let the seed rest. Speak only increase. Say, "It is done, I give thanks," and the harvest will ripen unseen until the hour of appearing. The Master gave thanks before the miracle appeared. At Lazarus's tomb, before the dead man walked, he said, "Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me." Gratitude before the fact is the faith that compels the fact to appear. Begin to thank God now for that which is still invisible, for in the mind of God, it is already yours. A young man I knew longed for work in his chosen field. Jobs were scarce, offers were few, yet he rose each day, dressed for success, and acted as though the position were his. He gave thanks aloud. I praise and thank thee for my perfect work now appearing. Within weeks, he was offered a position beyond his expectation. He had lived in the vibration of his desire until the law had no choice but to clothe it in form. Ella Wheeler Wilcox wrote, "Always continue the climb. It is possible for you to do whatever you choose if you first get to know who you are and are willing to work with a power that is greater than ourselves to do it. This greater power is the Spirit, and it is eager to work through you. But it requires your cooperation, your agreement in thought, word, and deed." Manifestation is not chasing, it is magnetizing. The deer does not run after the stream, it finds the place where the water flows. The flower does not chase the bee, it opens, and the bee comes. When you are in right vibration, your good is drawn to you by the same law that pulls the planets in their orbits. Do not be surprised if your manifestation lifts others as well. Divine law works for the good of all. When your cup overflows, it spills into the lives around you. A woman once prayed for prosperity. And when it came, it not only cleared her debts, but allowed her to fund her sister's education. Her harvest became seed for another's garden, and the cycle of blessing multiplied. In manifestation, there is no small and no great. The same law that moves mountains will find you a parking space. The same spirit that heals a body will find you a friend. There is no limit in the infinite. There is only the measure you are willing to believe. Beloved, see your good now. Feel it as though it were already here. Bless it, thank it, claim it. Say, "This is mine by divine right, and it now comes to me in perfect ways." And then, rest in the knowing. For the law is exact, the promise is sure, and the harvest cannot fail. The final word is this. Manifestation is not the end, but the continuation of the cycle. What you receive becomes the seed for the next creation. As long as you live, you are sowing and reaping, speaking and seeing, believing and becoming. The garden of your life is endless. Go then, and speak the word over your good. See it rise before your eyes, and when it comes, lift your hands in thanks, and sow again. For the law of God is eternal, and your supply is without end. If this truth has blessed you, be the blessing that carries it forth. Like, share, and subscribe, so that this river of divine revelation may flow to every soul ready to receive their harvest in full.